My dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, welcome to the seventh ordinary Sunday of the year. For our today's reflection, we are given a challenging passage to us taken from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 6, verses 27 to 38. The heading given here is Love of Enemies. Jesus seems to teach us here something different from world other religious leaders or political leaders or spiritual leaders or social leaders. Come, let us enter into the passage to see the difference. Jesus is telling, but to you who hear, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. To the person who strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one as well. And from the person who takes your cloak, do not withhold even your own tunic. Give to everyone who asks of you, and from the one who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. This teaching Jesus is doing because the earlier law, it was existing. It is known as an eye for eye, a tooth for tooth, which is based on the Hammurabi code, and which is said in Hebrew, ayin tahat ayin, matlab an eye for eye, which we can call it, the justice is measure for measure. If someone has damaged about 10 rupees, that damage should be replaced with the 10 rupees. That is the understanding. It is taken from the book of Exodus, chapter 21, verse 24. Again, further we can see it, book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verses 19 and 20, and book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, verse 21. Now, why did Jesus say this teaching? Because there were various teaching existing during the time of Jesus in and around the world. And therefore, Jesus wants to teach his disciples that they should surpass the level of that existing systems. He wants his disciples to go further from what the system is there. And therefore he is telling to them, unless you do not surpass the Pharisees, the scribes and the lawmakers, you will not enter into heaven. As well as he is telling, you will not become children of God. In order to become children of God, Jesus wants every follower of him, or every Christian and every human being, to surpass whatever is existing in the law, whatever is existing in the world. And therefore, Jesus places before them something new, something great, other than the other religious leaders or political leaders or spiritual leaders or social leaders of the world. Now, a question might arise to each one of us. Did Jesus surpass the other religious leaders, political leaders, spiritual leaders, social leaders? Yes, I say Jesus surpassed them all. Now, you all might ask, how did Jesus surpass them all? So, my dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, I want to place before you world major religious people. Among them, how did Jesus surpass them? I give an example from every religious leaders of the world, leaving out three major religions like Hinduism, Taoism and Confucianism, which in our India not so prevalent. So leaving out these three religions, other major religions of the world, I take and speak. Now, first I spoke about Hammurabi code, and which is based on the Jewish religion. And what does the Jewish religion teach? An eye for eye, tooth for tooth. And therefore only Jesus, who was being a Jew, surpasses that teaching and gives you a new teaching. And therefore that Jewish religion or Jewish religious leaders also lack something what Jesus has. Now coming to other religious leaders, let us take Gautam Buddha. Gautam Buddha, who is considered as a person who got enlightenment. After his enlightenment, one day he decided to go and see his wife Yashoda, whom he had left, and he wanted to know how is their condition. And when he entered there, his wife Yashoda asked him a question. If I had done the same thing like you have done, you left me a day without informing me and went away. If I had done the same thing, what the world would have said? The world would have said or named me as your unfaithful wife. And if I had come like this, your family members would have even killed me. For this, Gautam Buddha had no answer. Now, take Mahavir Jain. Mahavir Jain is also a person considered who got enlightenment. For the enlightenment, the method he used is renunciation. What did he renounce? He renounced even clothing. And we can see in and around the world the Jain sages or hermits who are naked, which Jesus did not do it, and Jesus did not tell like that renunciation, and because it creates aversion among the people who look at the Jain sages or Jain hermits. And therefore Jesus is little higher than the Mahavir Jain. And let us take Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna in the Mahabharat war or battle, when Karna got on from the chariot to lift the wheel up, which was fallen in a pit, and while was trying to take, Krishna is telling to Arjun, now is the time to attack Karna and finish him off. And this way, he did not follow the rules of the war. He unjustly killed Karna. And coming to take Lord Ram. Lord Ram, when he was approached by Ravan's sister Suparnaga, and she expressed her love for him. What Ram said once when we said, I am faithful to my wife and therefore I cannot live and love you. Okay, that is okay. But at the same time, he told her, you try my brother Lakshman. And though Lakshman too was a married person that time, why did he suggest such a suggestion which he should have easily handled? He sent her to Lakshman, and when she tried a Lakshman disfigured her face, and that becomes the cause for the war between Ravan and Ram. And come to Guru Nanak. Guru Nanak, he has left behind his followers to have 5 outward things like turbans, rings, and a small sword in their pocket. Like that, various things they have to follow, which Jesus has not told any of his disciples, any of his outward things that his disciples have to follow or have to project themselves as Christians. And next we have Nabi Muhammad. Nabi Muhammad, in that time there was a war, many men died, and therefore he suggested that a person can marry 4 and more than 4 persons. And he himself, it is said, he married a girl of 9 years. So like this, when we look into the lives of great persons in the world or world religious leaders, we can point out to the point out about each of them something, a weakness in them, something lacking in them. But in Jesus, or we cannot see anything lacking, anything to be pointed out that he is a weak person. He has proved himself right from his birth, even on the death on the cross, even after resurrection, and when was taken up to heaven, ascension. We can see Jesus as a perfect person. And therefore, in his teaching also, he recommends in today's gospel, he is telling in chapter 6, verse 36, he is telling, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And again, we can read in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 48, where he is telling, be perfect just as your heavenly Father is perfect. And therefore, Jesus presents himself as a perfect person, and with him there is no guile, with him there is no sin, with him there is no weakness, with him there is no shortcomings or failures. And therefore, Jesus surpasses all the other world religious leaders. And therefore only we say that how Jesus is greater than others, and his teaching also greater than others. Jesus' teaching is greater. From today's gospel we can see. Whereas many people, they justifies injustice done to other person, but Jesus never justifies any injustice done to other person, even to an enemy. And therefore he is telling, for if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And therefore Jesus has walked away from the teachings of the world, and he is giving us a new teaching, and this new teaching has been followed by various people. And one example is that today's first reading, where King David got an opportunity to kill Saul, who was trying to finish up David. But when he got opportunity, he did not do so. In the first book of Samuel, chapter 26, 10 and 11, we can see where David, after having got a golden chance to kill Saul, is telling, as the Lord lives, it must be the Lord himself who will strike him, whether the times call for him to die or he goes out and perishes in battle. But the Lord forbid that I touch his anointed. Now take the spear which is in his head and the water jug, and let us be on our way. He got an opportunity, but David did not do it. It has been practiced even during the time of Old Testament, and after the time of Jesus, Jesus himself on the cross, he has said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Jesus not just taught, he practiced, and he put it into practice and left as an example for his disciples, for his followers to follow. And we can take various examples from the church itself. We can see the example of John Paul II, who was shot on May 13th in the year 1982 in the Peter Square by a non-Christian person. But the Pope, after being cured, he went to the prison and met that person, embraced him and kissed him. And this way, he followed Jesus, the teaching of Jesus, love your enemies. And again, we have another example, which is we can see from the life of Rani Maria, who was killed in Indore in Madhya Pradesh when she was doing social work. She was traveling in a bus where she was killed by a person. And that person, when he was put in this jail, and the Rani Maria's parents brothers and sisters visited him and forgave him. And after his imprisonment, they took to their house, and today he is a part and parcel of their families, and he is reconciled and he is forgiven. And this is another example where our people who follow Jesus have forgiven. Here again we can see that where the family has forgiven and reconciled with that person who killed their daughter, their sister. Now that person is preaching the gospel and bearing witness to Jesus. We can go on enlisting like this various examples where persons have forgiven the persons who have committed sins against the Christians. Like we have our sister in Orissa, Stanley's wife, whose husband and two children were burnt. Now she is continuing the good work what her husband had started in Orissa. So like that, various examples where the teachings of Jesus is applied, practiced and put into action. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, following the example of Jesus, following the teaching of Jesus, let us follow Jesus so that we can surpass others and become children of God. Amen.